Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us this morning. My name is Nicholas Reid from Reid Corporate, and on behalf of Liontown Resources and Minerals 260, I'm very pleased to welcome you to this special shareholder and investor webinar to discuss the demerger of Liontown's non-lithium exploration assets. Before we begin, I'd also like to refer you to the announcements and disclosures made by Liontown on the 19th of August regarding the demerger and IPO of Minerals 260, the prospectus for Minerals 260, also lodged on the 19th of August, and the Minerals 260 investor presentation lodged on the ASX platform on Friday. The format for this webinar is that David Richards, the Managing Director of Minerals 260, will run through this presentation and then we'll go straight to questions. If you would like to ask a question, please use the Ask a Question tab on the left-hand side of your browser, and please remember to submit your questions during the presentation so we have time to put them to David. Now, by way of introduction, as the highly regarded resources journalist Barry Fitzgerald wrote last week in his well-regarded column, David is well known for leading the team that delivered the Tier 1 Kathleen Valley lithium deposit, which has underpinned Liontown's spectacular growth to become a $1.8 billion company. David now gets his chance for a repeat performance, not in lithium, but in gold, nickel, PGE, Barry wrote. David is, of course, the MD of Minerals 260, which is being demerged from Liontown, so it can pick up the running on the non-lithium assets which David assembled during his stint as Liontown MD. David was also a key driver behind Liontown's decision to take up ground in the Yilgarn's southwest terrain back in 2018, well before Chalice Mining set the region alight with its spectacular Julimar discovery. Minerals 260's key project, the Mura project, is in the same geological terrain as Julimar, 95 kilometres to the south, and it has already delivered some very promising gold and copper-gold results, suggesting that the company is going to be able to hit the ground running after it lists on the ASX in October. To tell us all about it, please welcome David Richards.
Thank you, Nicholas, and good morning, everyone. And as Nicholas said, today I'm going to be providing an overview on Liontown's proposal to demerge its non-lithium assets into a new company called Minerals 260. The new company will be largely focused on our projects in the Julimar region of Western Australia. And today I'm going to provide the rationale for the demerger, give some details on the mechanics of the process, and just recap the projects so people understand what we're going to be doing going forward. Okay, the standard disclaimer, which I won't dwell on, but if you are the sort of person that likes to read these things, the presentation is available on the website, and I suggest you go there if you do want to have a closer look at this page. The main assets for Minerals 260s will be the Mura and Koojan projects in the Julimar region of Western Australia. Combined, they cover a total area of about 1,000 square kilometres. Before Liontown started work on these projects, they were largely unexplored. Our early exploration results have returned drill intersections up to 43 metres of 1.8 grams per tonne gold. So it's been a good start to the exploration in the area, and we're looking forward to building on these results. Minerals 260 will have two other projects in its portfolio, the Dingo Rocks and Yalwest projects. Both of them are in Western Australia. Both are 100% owned, and both of them have untested geophysical anomalies which we think warrant further attention. On the right-hand side of this slide, you have the Minerals 260's board. We are all current directors of Liontown. In fact, we comprise the Liontown board that made the decision back in 2016 to acquire the Kathleen Valley project when the Liontown share price was less than 2 cents. We've also had considerable success away from Liontown, so the board isn't a one-trick pony. So the obvious question is, why the demerger? The reality is that Liontown is just going to get busier and busier, turning Kathleen Valley from a resource into a mine. So the other projects are going to get less and less attention. And the board believes that both Mura and Koojan warrant their own dedicated exploration effort. So the demerger represents a logical separation of the lithium and non-lithium projects while allowing shareholders to retain exposure to both. Independent management will ensure that both the lithium and non-lithium assets get the attention they deserve. And the money raised by Minerals 260 will allow for an accelerated exploration program at Mora and Koojan, thereby unlocking the potential value of having the second largest land position in the Julimar region. And Liontown shareholders, if they so desire, will be able to retain an undiluted interest in both Mora and Koojan through the priority offer entitlement that forms part of the IPO process. There will be a general meeting of shareholders on the 22nd of September, where Liontown shareholders will consider the proposal to demerge the non-lithium assets. If shareholders approve the demerger, then they will receive 1 share in Minerals 260 for each 11.91 shares they currently hold in Liontown. We're looking to raise between $15 and $30 million and looking to list by the 15th of October this year. On the right-hand side of the slide are the key dates. Some of the more relevant ones and some of the questions we've been asked that are, if you are a Liontown shareholder and you do want to take up your priority offer, then you need to have applied for and paid for these extra shares by the 22nd of September. If you're a Liontown shareholder on the 28th of September, then you will receive an in-specie distribution in Minerals 260. As I've mentioned before, we're looking to list on the 15th of October 2021. We'll be raising money at 50 cents a share, and as I've said before, we'll be raising between $15 and $30 million. Regardless of what we raise, the enterprise value of the new company will be $80 million. You can see on the right-hand side how we're going to use the funds. Most of the money will be going into in-ground exploration, which is as it should be, of course. Okay, moving on to the projects. So as I mentioned before, combined Mora and Koojan cover about 1,000 square kilometres, which means we have the second largest land position in the Julimar mineral province. The ground is largely unexplored. Even with the work we've done to date, there's still a lot of exploration to be done there. Our initial exploration defined a number of targets, very early on defined a number of targets, and our one and only drilling program has come up with a number of significant intersections. One point I do want to make, and Nicholas touched on this is not a neurology play. Liontown acquired its initial Mora holding back in 2018, well before the Julimar discovery. We picked up the ground that we thought was most prospective at the time, and there weren't a lot of other tenements in the area. And the fact that we picked up the ground which we thought was most prospective has been validated by the exploration results that we've received to date. We've defined 3 prospective trends at Mora and Koojan. Of course, we've got the northern extension of the Julimar corridor, which is defined by magnetic data provided by the West Australian Government. And this trend continues into the western part of the Koojan joint venture and includes the new Bubana anomaly, which I'll touch on a bit more later on. To the east of this trend, we have what we refer to as the Mount Yule corridor. And this is where we've actually done most of our field work to date. And drilling there has returned a number of really good intersections, including 43 metres of 1.8 grams per tonne gold at Angepena and 9 metres of 2.1% copper just to the north of what we call the northern zone. And we also think that this trend includes a new Mallory anomaly on the northwestern part of the Koojan joint venture. Further to the east, we have the historic Bindi nickel trend. We're drilling by Poseidon nickel back in 1968, intersected 21 metres of 0.6% nickel from surface, and we'll be following this up as well. Most of the work that we've done in the area has been the Mount Yule magnetic anomaly. This is a large magnetic high. It's 7 kilometres long east-west, 2.5 kilometres wide north-south. We've done 1 drilling program. We've intersected 3 different zones of mineralisation. At Angepena, we've got a 900 metre long zone, and I've mentioned the intersection before of 43 metres at 1.8. To the north of Angepena, we've got a plus 2 kilometre long zone of anomalous copper and gold mineralisation. As you can see on this figure, multiple ore grade intersections, including the 9 metres of 2.1%, which I referred to previously, and gold intersections up to 7 metres of 1.1 grams per tonne. So a lot of mineralisation. And in the southeast corner of the magnetic anomaly, we have a single drill hole that's intersected 17 metres at 0.4 grams from surface and 12 metres of 0.2% copper at the bottom of the hole. All these mineralised trends remain open, and this area will be the main focus of Minerals 260 subsequent to listing in October. Just a bit more about Angepena, which is obviously our priority. On the left-hand side, we have a drill hole planned, and you can see that in addition to the 43 metres of 1.8 grams per tonne gold, we have another intersection of 11 metres of 1.5 grams per tonne gold in a shallow air core hole 300 metres to the north-west. So you can see it's quite a gap, 300 metres. There's no drilling in between the two holes, and we think the zone is at least 900 metres long. On the right-hand side of this slide, we have what we think is an interpretation of what we think is happening. We've got a steeply dipping zone of mineralisation, which we think probably gets to surface. The plan is to get in as soon as possible after we list and do some diamond drilling just to confirm this interpretation. Moving on to the Koojan joint venture, this is immediately to the west of the Angepena area, as it turns out. So we've defined a number of significant anomalies through auger sampling. The highest priority targets at the moment are the Mallory and Bulbana anomalies. Mallory is up in the northwest corner of the Koojan joint venture. Here we've defined a 2 kilometre long PGE anomaly with quite significant numbers for surface geochemistry, up to 0.16 grams per tonne combined PGEs. And these are coincident with a very coherent, robust gold anomaly. Further to the south at Bulbana, we've got a very large, very complex gold anomaly with multiple plus 50 ppb gold peaks with individual values up to 135 ppb gold. So really quite significant gold numbers. At both prospects and at other targets we've defined within the Koojan joint venture, the plan is to get in with some ground geophysics to help us define or help us site follow-up drilling. So that's the intention. Do the ground geophysics, define the drill targets, and then drill them as soon as we can. So what's the plan for Mora and Koojan? Well, the focus will be Angepena. So hopefully soon after we've listed, we have a diamond core rig booked already. The plan is to get in there, drill a number of diamond core holes just to confirm the style and orientation of the mineralisation. Once we've done that, we'll get in with the reverse circulation drill rig and drill enough holes to define the limits of the mineralised system. And on the assumption that we define a nice coherent zone of mineralisation, we'll then move quickly into the resource definition drilling program. Because of the good working relationships we have with the local farmers up there, we've been able to negotiate access all year round to the Angepena area, so we're not going to be constrained by the cropping cycle. Elsewhere at Mora and Koojan, we obviously have the other targets at Mount Yule that we want to follow up, and we're looking forward to doing that. And I should point out it's still very early days at both Mora and Koojan. There is a lot of work to be done and a lot more targets to be defined. So we're going to be doing some detailed aeromagnetics, more ground EM surveys. We're going to be reviewing the geochemical data that we've collected to date with the intention of defining more drill targets, and we're confident that we will be able to find more drill targets, and then obviously as soon as we define them, we'll then look to drill test those targets. As I've mentioned before, we do have two other projects within the Minerals 260 portfolio. We've got a slide on each here. So Dingo Rocks, it's in southeast Western Australia, southeast of Norseman. It's located within the Albany Fraser province, close to the margin of the Yule Craton. Why is that significant? Well, you find large deposits close to the margins of Archean cratons, and examples of these are, of course, Tropicana and Nova to the northeast of the Dingo Rocks property, and of course Julimar, which is right next to the western edge of the Yulgan Craton. The prospective geology at Dingo's Rocks is largely obscured by transported cover. There has been a large amount of surface geochemical sampling done across the tenement, but because of the transported cover, this hasn't been effective. We think that the magnetic highs that we're seeing at Dingo Rocks may well be mafic ultramafic units prospective for nickel and PGE mineralisation. At Yalwest, it's located east of Geraldton and surprisingly west of Yalgoo. It's located in the Murchison province of the Archean Yulgan Craton. The Murchison province has been a prolific producer of gold in the past. Again, magnetic data indicates that we have greenstone lithologies within the Yalwest tenements which could be prospective for gold and base metals. But for some reason, and I really don't understand why, there's never been any exploration done in this area. So we're obviously looking forward to getting in there and doing the first ever exploration work that's ever been done. So that's it. Pretty straightforward story. Why invest in Minerals 260? Well, with Mora and And Koojan, we have the second largest ground holding in one of the most exciting and emerging mineral provinces, not only in Australia, but probably in the world. Very accomplished management or very accomplished board with a proven track record of commercial successes in the past. Our early drilling at Mora has confirmed the potential for significant mineralisation, so we've validated the concept. We have a number of drill-ready targets, including obviously the highest priority is Angepena, which we look to be drilling in the second half of October. But beyond Angepena, we have a number of other targets as well. The area still has a lot of potential. We've really only just started work here. I'll just remind everyone, exploration started on these projects last year, and we've had to deal with COVID-19 in the process as well. We're in Western Australia, and I think if we've seen nothing else in recent times, the benefit of having your exploration projects in the same state as where you're based and in Western Australia is hugely beneficial. And of course, we've got all the infrastructure we need. So if we do find something, there shouldn't be any impediments to developing it. And that's it. So I'm happy to take questions, Nicholas.
Thanks very much, David, and thank you to everyone for your questions. They've been streaming in, so we do appreciate that. We'll do our best to get through as many as we can without sort of getting stuck here all day, but let's try and rip through them as quickly as possible. So,
sure.
David, I'll go to the email questions that came in late last week first, if that's okay.
Sure.
So the first one here is from a gentleman called Roger Freeney, who's a Liontown shareholder. He's the trustee and beneficiary of his self-managed super fund. He says, is my understanding correct that Liontown shareholders, including our SMSF, will receive an in-specie distribution of a Minerals 260 share for every 11.91 Liontown shares held without cost?
Correct. That's exactly right, yes.
Also, will shareholders be able to apply for Minerals 260 shares in the priority offer at a ratio of 31.7504 at 50 cents per share?
That's correct, yes. And actually, I should just point out these exact ratios may change a little bit, not a lot, because if people exercise options and such thing, but they won't change significantly from those numbers.
Okay, he also asks, will there be any scale back in the priority offer?
No, not in the priority offer. If you apply for your shares under the priority offer, you'll get all those shares. Yep.
Great. And can shareholders also apply for Minerals 260 shares in the shortfall offer at 50 cents per share?
Absolutely, yes.
Great. Okay. One more question from Roger. Might put you on the spot on this one. He says, assuming a $30 million raise in the IPO, the implied market cap of Minerals 260 will be 110 million, around 5% of Chalice's, which seems a low percentage by comparison. Can you please give us a comment on the respective values?
Yeah, it's actually it's unusual because most people ask how can we justify $110 million market cap, so it's a bit different. Listen, we're doing our own thing. We've looked at what we have and where we are. We've looked at who's around us and what their market caps are, and we think $110 million is justified. Maybe we're being a little bit conservative, but I don't think that hurts too much. So let's see what the market thinks we're worth post-listing.
Great. Another question, David, just about the IPO itself. So you're raising 30 million. A lot of IPOs that we're accustomed to seeing in the market these days are probably between 5 and say 10 million. So it's a reasonable size IPO. Do you want to offer a comment on that? Sure.
I mean, a lot of IPOs are based on basically just a tenement position. A lot of IPOs actually haven't done any drilling or haven't got a lot of targets. They've got to go and do the work. At Minerals 260, we've already done some drilling. We've already got results. We're confident that with our next phase of drilling, we'll be able to back those up and that we'll continue on. So we don't see a lot of point raising money now and then having to raise money in 12 months' time to then fund the next phase of exploration. So we want to have the resources available to us to be able to accelerate exploration as soon as, and continue on and maintain the momentum in exploration at both Mora and Koojan without having to go back to the market to ask for more money to do it. So.
Great, excellent. Next question comes from Dorothy Trevan. She's a shareholder in Liontown and she's raised a couple of concerns about the proposed demerger. She says, having recently been a shareholder in Chalice, which is undergoing a similar process and which has seen its share price fall significantly, can you offer any reasons why this would not also happen with the Liontown demerger? and why shareholders should refrain from selling?
Well, I think the most obvious reason why it shouldn't happen is because it hasn't happened. So we've announced our plan to demerge and float. Chalice have done the same thing. Our share price has actually gone up, so we've seen the opposite happen. So the evidence isn't there basically. So I suppose that's some assurance. And in fact, I think Liontown closed at $1 on Friday, which is the first time it's closed at $1, above $1 in its history. So we just haven't seen that response to date. So that hopefully will give people a degree of comfort. Well, it hasn't happened, so that answers that question.
And Chalice is trading strongly as well.
Yeah, and Chalice is, it's not too shabby. They were a 16-cent stock at the beginning of last year, so let's not get too carried away, people.
The other part of her question, I think, relates to unmarketable parcels. She says that when shareholders receive shares as a result of the in-specie distribution, that will be below the sort of $500 usual minimum requirement. Will there be any special conditions to allow such a small amount of shares to be kept in people's portfolio, or would she need to buy more or potentially?
At this stage, we don't have any actions planned for unmarketable packages, so we're not going to take them off you just because they're less than $500 at this stage. So,
okay, great. I'll jump onto the online questions that have come in.
Sure.
So, firstly, from Brad Johnson, can you please advise what the timeline is for the next phase of drilling?
Sure. Listen, like I said, we have a drill rig booked. The plan is that subsequent to listing, we'll be back. Hopefully, we're listing 15th of October. Hopefully, we can be drilling in a week or so after that. So we are intending to get on the ground and start drilling as soon as possible. Angepena is the only prospect where we have negotiated all-year access, but with the crops coming off later this year, we look to be drilling in other parts of the project area sort of late November, December as well. So.
Okay, great. I'm just going to run through these one by one. So
Yep.
Graham Hipley says, how likely are shortfall offers likely to be met/approved? I assume he's asking...
Well, will there be a scale back?
Will there be a scale back, I'm guessing?
Listen, let's wait and see. If we have to scale back, it's probably not a bad thing, but at the moment we don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Okay. How long do you expect before Minerals 260 could be ready to start announcing results? It's from John Haddy.
Well, if we're drilling in October, it is diamond core drilling. It takes a while to process. It's probably December, I would have thought. December, yeah. By the time we drill the holes, process the holes, put them into there, and the labs are backed up at the moment, so you're probably looking at 4 to 5 weeks to get assays back. So from the time we get the samples into the lab, you're looking at probably at least a month. So okay. December, realistically. But we'll be pushing as hard as we can to get those results.
Great. So. A question from Paul Krasnoff. He says, "Hi David.
Hi Paul.
This is a super exciting project with massive resources that you haven't yet told us about. I believe that you last told us when you last presented, you mentioned smoke, gold, and it looked very promising. You gave the body language of someone who was very excited, like a young lad in the lolly shop. Can you please give us a comment about your thoughts on the exploration upside here?"
Listen, I think I think the area is very prospective. I've got to be a bit careful about what I say because I can't say anything that wasn't in the prospectus, as I've been told. So, listen, I wouldn't do this job and wouldn't be taking on. I mean, I don't have to do this job. I don't have to take on this role, and I wouldn't be doing it unless I thought there was some real potential at both Moora and Koojan and the other projects as well. So, I'll probably leave it at that, I think.
No problems. A number of questions here along the same lines, and I think you have sort of answered this. How is the demerger going to affect the share price of Liontown?
Listen, it's a bit hard to know. Theoretically, it may come back a few percent based on the perceived market cap of Minerals 260 compared with the total market cap of Liontown. So people can work it out for themselves. If we have a market cap of $100 million and the Liontown market cap's 1.9 billion, you take $100 million off the 1.9 and you can work out a ratio. And I'm a geologist, not a mathematician, so I won't try to do that on the fly, but that's a simple equation. So.
Great. Peter Crynes asked, do we still have time to purchase Liontown and be involved? Can you please confirm the record date?
28th of September, so yeah, you got heaps of time.
Excellent.
Yep.
Question from Des Moriarty. If not covered, as I understand it, the western boundary of the Yule is east of the area of the JV, but the magnetics seem to be continuous with Chalice through the Caspian areas.
Yeah, no, he's got that wrong. The boundary of the Yule is actually west of where we are, not to the east. So we are wholly within the Yule Craton. So
right.
So yeah, so that's a misinterpretation of the magnetics. But I assure you, the Darling Scarp, which is the boundary of the Yule Craton, is to the west of our projects.
Okay. Yep. A question from Navin. Are there any plans to take over the Koojan project 100% from LSA at some point?
Well, let's see what results we get. We have a very good working relationship with LSA. At the moment, we're happy with the joint venture. So the short answer is we don't have any plans at the moment, but let's see what the future brings and how it all works out.
Okay, a question from Jerry Howard. Are there any native title concerns or issues with any of the projects?
There's no native title. Well, listen, there's heritage issues, I suppose, but it's all freehold land, predominantly freehold land. Most of it's cropped, so most of it's being, I wouldn't say, so yeah, it's all cropped. There's no native title. In areas of remnant bush, we have to be concerned about heritage issues, which we take very seriously, but the simple answer is no, it's not a significant factor.
There's a number of questions, David, from shareholders with specific questions in relation to their holdings, communications,
yep.
register issues. I won't address them here because okay. I think they're individual questions, but can you just give people some general advice as to where they should go if they do have
there's just ring the office and speak to the company secretary. I know there have been a lot of people ringing in after we announced it. Most of the admin staff in the office are getting very adept at answering questions, and send us an email at info@minerals260.com.au would also we can answer that as well. So they are being addressed, and we are getting a lot of them, so we can answer those questions.
Excellent. Okay, gentleman who just joined. He just asked, how was the initial valuation of Minerals 260 derived?
This is the opposite question of why we're only putting $110 million onto it. Like I said, I suppose our philosophy, and I should point out, when we were thinking about whether we should demerge the assets, we made the decision we weren't going to do that unless there was genuine value to Liontown shareholders. Otherwise, we might as well just leave the thing in Liontown. So unless we can get some genuine value into those projects, and get that value transferred to Liontown shareholders, we weren't going to do it. So we always set a fairly ambitious target with the value. We then looked at the fact that we were in a red hot area based on the Chalice discovery, although we were there before Chalice. We actually do have proper drill intersections, so we actually have some pretty serious mineralisation around us. And then we did things, we looked at the companies that were active in the area, we looked at the market caps of those companies, we look at the area that they held, and we sort of thought, well, if you get a square kilometre rate per market, for a market cap, then that helped us. So it was a combination of factors. But I'll be honest, it was largely driven by the fact that if there wasn't going to be some genuine value for Liontown shareholders, we weren't going to do it. So, and that's still the case. If we don't see genuine value for Liontown shareholders, it won't happen.
Fantastic, thanks, David. A couple of other questions. Your exploration budget for calendar 2022?
Well, it was on there. I think it's about 8. Well, it depends how much we raise. But I'd suggest you go back to the presentation. I don't have it off the top of my head. It's a significant amount of money. It's in the millions of dollars. So.
Fantastic. And look, I think we've probably dealt with most of them here. There's just might just finish here with a comment from a gentleman who says that after being in the exploration industry for nearly 40 years, raising 30 million is a great move. 5 million will go nowhere. So
absolutely. I mean, we don't see the point. I mean, you spend half of that on bloody ASX fees and listing fees and God knows what else. So if you don't raise a significant amount of money, you're just wasting everybody's time. So I agree with him 100%. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Nicholas, and thank you everyone for tuning in.
Excellent. Thank you very much, David. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to David. An exciting story, as you can hear. Lots of news flow to come, lots of action. Once again, we appreciate your patience for rejoining us for this morning, and if you do have any follow-up questions, please feel free to contact us here at Reed Corporate, or more directly for the Liontown shareholders to contact the Liontown office here in Perth. Thank you very much for your attention, and we look forward to presenting to you again. Thank you.